Am I a hypocrite? We give labels and meaning to everything we see, and too often we aim some of the ugliest labels at ourselves: hypocrite, bad parent, selfish spouse. And today, we'll discuss the number one thing that feeds the painful label of hypocrite and what you can do to wash it away for good. Oh, and to be clear, this solution can wash away any negative label. Let's do it. My name is Joe. I provide simple, proven tactics so you can lead your family better, no matter what else is going on. Marriage and parenting might be the most rewarding roles on the planet, but that doesn't make them easy. In fact, they are likely the two hardest roles anyone could ever have, especially when this one thing happens on a daily basis. You simply cannot avoid it. But what makes it worse is how, because of this thing, you probably feel like you're failing. So what is it? Being inconsistent. Inconsistency is at the heart of hypocrisy and a lot of other negative labels. So what do I mean by being inconsistent? Well, maybe you want to get up early to exercise, but you don't. You want to compliment your spouse on a regular basis, but you don't. You know that positive, optimistic tone you use when talking with clients? You plan to use that same tone with your kids, but you don't. You try to be as patient with your 15-year-old as you are with your 7-year-old, but you're not. You set limits on how much junk food your kids can consume during the day. Then you pound the little Debbie snacks after they go to bed. Or you claim a solid faith in your higher power. But you can't remember the last time you said personal prayers 2 days in a row. This is what I mean when I speak about inconsistency. So why can something like this have such a negative impact on how we view ourselves and our roles within our family? And more importantly, how can we free ourselves from this issue once and for all? Well, let's start with a scenario that might sound familiar. Imagine being in a heated conversation with your spouse, only to have said spouse take a call and to the person on the phone sound like they are as calm as can be. From when I was a kid and this happened with my parents to the early years of my marriage, I would attach all kinds of meaning to this inconsistent behavior. Ooh, mom must not be as mad at me as I thought she was. Wrong. Or, okay, I guess we're done having this conversation. Wrong. Or even, why does my wife hold all her hate and anger for me while giving the best of who she is to everyone else? And this too, I eventually learned, was wrong. But in those moments, the inconsistent behavior caused me to poorly interpret what was going on and what needed to be done. It is the same when I am inconsistent in my behavior or my example. The inconsistency prevents my wife or my children from understanding what is going on and what I actually need. This confusion creates chaos, mental, emotional, spiritual, and situational chaos, whether I meant for it to or not. And if I'm creating chaos in my home, then clearly I am a bad parent or terrible spouse. I mean, if I'm being inconsistent, then the only answer is that I am a hypocrite, right? Well, it would seem that the solution to not fall under these labels is to be completely consistent, day in and day out, in my behavior, attitudes, thoughts, communication, and whatever else towards myself and my spouse and my kids. In other words, all I need to do is be perfect. Here's a quick Pro Ninja tip. We know we can't be perfect, so we use buzzwords like ideal, complete, ultimate, and others that let us pretend we're being realistic, even though perfection is still the subconscious expectation. Now, I've never met someone perfect. I'm personally far from it. So what do we do when we decide the answer is perfection while at the same time knowing we cannot achieve perfection? We hide. We hide at work or at the gym. We hide in callings or volunteer work at church. We hide behind our phones, behind silence, and we hide behind anger and judgment. All of that because we're not perfect. It is not the inconsistency of our behavior, but the meaning that we as individuals attach to that inconsistency that creates chaos. In the same way, it is not our imperfection that causes us to hide or withdraw from those we love, but rather it is our broken demand for perfection that leaves us isolated. So you're left feeling alone. You feel disconnected. You decide it's normal for parents and teenagers to constantly fight. Or you blame your spouse for not doing more of this or less of that. Is that what you want? Is that what you think God wants for you? Is that how a family is meant to function? Of course not. But you can keep hiding. You can keep running. You can run all the way to the lawyer's office and sign those papers. I mean, that seems to be the most common solution anymore. But it won't work because you'll still be hiding. You'll still be giving the wrong meaning to your inconsistencies. You still won't be perfect, and the cycle will repeat. But there is a better way, and it's so much simpler than hiding or running or staying alone. In fact, you can end the cycle by implementing 3 simple steps. Step 1, discover what you actually want. Step 2, decide on a new story, a new meaning for your inconsistency. Step 3, do some accountability as you do your best. It really is that simple. Because remember, this all started with just one thing. That one thing was you deciding on a story or a meaning to your inconsistency. That story determined your response, and it is the response that has created the chaos. If you change your story, you can change your response. And when you change your response, you can change the outcome. So, is that what you want? Are you truly committed to a better path? Or are you satisfied with the status quo? Would you rather choose the comfort of the devil you know over the growing pains of happier relationships? You need to discover what you want. You need to know. Because while simple, this will take effort. You're going to rewrite decades of bad experiences and deeply rooted lies. Do you want to see your spouse as your best friend again? Do you want to build relationships of trust that bring your kids to you when they're hurting, instead of them turning to drugs or porn or bad friends? Do you want to break free into actually enjoying your life instead of hiding from it? If that is what you want, then it is worth it. Discover what you want. Commit to it so that in step 2, we can decide on a new story. Let's make this simple. I will give you a new story that you can start with. Then as the days go by, feel free to make it more your own if you like. So try this as your new story. Yes, I am inconsistent, like every other human. In fact, I might be more inconsistent because I'm learning and growing and pushing myself to new heights. I'm actually grateful for every time I see an inconsistency because it gives me the chance to correct my course and get that much closer to being the best version of myself. Okay? Great. You decided on a new story. Your new story embraces growth and allows you to be inconsistent as you work through new things. And that feels good, but it also feels like it's still going to create chaos a little, doesn't it? Well, it probably will, unless you do step 3. Step 3 is to do some accountability as you do your best. That means to own up to and work through your inconsistency when you or someone else points it out. Imagine you're in a heated debate with your teenage son. He sees how you treat his sister differently and he's sick of it. It's not fair. It's obvious she's your favorite, and why are you always so hard on him? Now, you know you're being inconsistent. You also know that he has no idea how hard parenting is, how different personalities need different support, or how there is no manual and you're learning on the fly. Your instinct may be to defend yourself, to make excuses, or to establish your dominance as the parent. But have any of those reactions worked out? What if instead, when an inconsistency is acknowledged or even attacked, you do some accountability and open up about it? And I don't mean open up like a gladiator with your chest puffed out, calling for the other person to bring it on. Fine, let's talk about it. You have any idea how hard parenting is? It's not like you and your sister came with a manual. You want me to treat you like her? You want tea parties and princess dolls? Is that what you want? That kind of response has nothing to do with opening up. Responding with that attitude is about you trying to win. It's about shaming the other individual into backing down. And that is not in line with what you discovered you wanted. It is not in line with your new story. Instead, take a deep breath. Slow the moment down. See your son for who he is. A person just like you with wants and desires who is actually calling out to you for attention and for support. And with the confidence of someone seeing the chance to grow, you respond with, "You're right, son. I can see that now too. Will you work with me to map that out so we can better understand what I can do to be here for you in a way consistent with what you need?" If the answer is no, then table the argument so you can put in the time yourself. There is no argument that requires such an immediate response that you cannot take the space needed to find the best response. But what if the answer is yes? What if you and your son sit down and discover what's really going on, what he sees, what he needs? What would that make possible in your relationship with him? What would that make possible in your relationship with your spouse, with any of your kids, with yourself, with your God? As an imperfect human being, you may never be totally consistent in your behavior, actions, and attitudes, but you can choose to do your best in communicating about what's going on when you are inconsistent. As you implement this solution, you can wash away the label of hypocrisy for good, because after all, you're an imperfect being now taking intentional steps to move forward. These steps are part of my 3D framework: discover, decide, do. Click the video on the screen and find out how the 3D framework creates work-life balance that could possibly impact generations.